White House taking aim at former acting Attorney General and career prosecutor Sally Yates on the heels of her Senate testimony that she urgently warned
just fired the embattled FBI Director James Comey. In a statement, the White House said the president acted on the advice of both the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, and the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Rod Rosenstein. I want to bring in Jeffrey Toobin, our senior legal analyst. Jeffrey, this is an extraordinary moment in American history.
You bet it is, Wolf, and it's a grotesque abuse of power by the President of the United States. This is the kind of thing that goes on in non-democracies, that when there is an investigation that reaches near the President of the United States or the leader of a non-democracy, they fire the people who were in charge of the investigation. I have not seen anything like this since October 20th, 1973, when President Nixon fired Archibald Cox, the Watergate special prosecutor. This is something that is not within the American political tradition. That firing led indirectly, but certainly, to the resignation of President Nixon, and this is very much in this tradition. This is not normal. This is not politics as usual. This is something that is completely outside how American law is supposed to work.
But the president does have the authority to fire an FBI director, Jeffrey, right?
He certainly does. He absolutely does. Bill Clinton fired William Sessions early in President Clinton's term. There is no question that the president has the legal authority to do what he has done. But that is not by any means the end of the inquiry. This is a political act. When the president is under investigation, when his White House counsel was described yesterday as being told that his national security advisor was subject to blackmail by the Russians, and they fired the attorney general a few days later. Now they've fired the FBI director. I mean, what kind of country is this?
Colluded with the Russians, a very serious offense. Were these investigations getting too close to home for the president? It is troubling that Attorney General Sessions, who had recused himself from the Russian investigation, played a role in firing the man leading it. So what happens now? Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein sat in the Judiciary Committee and promised to appoint a special prosecutor at the appropriate time. That time is right now. The American people's trust in our criminal justice system is in Rosenstein's hands. Mr. Rosenstein, America depends on you to restore faith in our criminal justice system, which is going to be badly shattered after the administration's actions today. This is part of a deeply troubling pattern from the Trump administration. They fired Sally Yates. They fired Preet Bharara. And now they fired Director Comey, the very man leading the investigation. This does not seem to be a coincidence.
From Rod Rosenstein, it says that James Comey was fired for being too mean to Hillary Clinton? Does anyone believe that? Could anyone believe that? I mean, it's just absurd.
So what I think is happening here is Donald Trump is trading on the Deputy Attorney General's strong, independent reputation and trying to pretend that that is the reason why he is imposing this firing on Jim Comey, when really he's doing it to get out from under the Russia investigation. The only thing that I think could have further deteriorated confidence and eroded faith in the institution of the FBI than Jim Comey remaining there was firing Jim Comey, and now Donald Trump has gone and done that. The only thing that can happen now, we need a special counsel inside the Justice Department, because you have, as Jeffrey just noted, you have political appointees now guiding this investigation into the president who appointed them and to whom they owe their jobs. That is untenable. You need a special counsel inside the Justice Department who does not owe their job to Donald Trump to investigate Donald Trump. And separately, outside, you need an independent select commission Congress needs to submit to an independent commission with subpoena power so that we can finally get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, I'm afraid that this firing of Jim Comey will mean that we'll never get to the bottom of the right.
Well, let me ask you this, Brian. Don't you think
that there was really a sense of shock and disbelief, and that if Director Comey had known in advance that he was going to be terminated, he would have sent out some sort of workforce memo to notify them, but that didn't happen, and that really is consistent with what we're learning this evening, that he in fact learned from the media.
Going to just play this as a partisan game, but do what's best for our nation.
This is the motorcade of former Director Comey. We believe who was at a motorcade earlier, who was at an event, obviously, earlier in Los Angeles. And I want to, as we watch this, I want to go to our Jeffrey Toobin, who's standing by. Jeff, what do you say to Lindsey Graham and Susan Collins, who support this, who say, look,
FBI Director James Comey's testimony before the Senate, which now apparently it looks like the FBI Director gave inaccurate testimony to the Senate. Is the White House concerned that he greatly exaggerated or misstated what kind of contact Huma Abedin had in terms of her emails and sending them to Anthony Weiner?
I have not asked.
Trump has just fired the director of the FBI, James Comey. It is an unusual move that hasn't happened since the administration of Bill Clinton. Comey, of course, has been leading the investigation of whether Russia was involved in the U.S. election in terms of influencing the election, and also whether any associates of Donald Trump were colluding with the Russians to influence the election. Comey was appointed by President Obama to a 10-year term. About 3 years of that term have gone by, so he would have had another 7 years to go. Major Garrett is at the White House for us this afternoon. Major, what can you tell us?
Well, Scott Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, has confirmed to me that the president did take this action firing the FBI director. And the first inkling, Scott, that we got that James Comey's tenure as FBI director was in some degree of jeopardy came at today's White House briefing when Sean Spicer was asked if the president still had full confidence in the FBI director. Sean Spicer deferred on that question. He was reminded that he had said emphatically many weeks before that Comey had the president's confidence. But Spicer specifically did not use those words in relationship to Comey's stature at the FBI as of today. It's also worth pointing out that it's the FBI that has been conducting a counterintelligence investigation related to the questions raised by possible Russian activity with those in the Trump campaign, and it is that investigation that has yet to reach any conclusions about whether that collusion did or did not exist, even though this White House has asserted many times there's no evidence of that. That investigation is ongoing and continues to be somewhat of an irritant to this White House, which wants to shut down any more inquiries along that line, but the FBI has been sturdily keeping those investigations, or that investigation, open, and therefore that question unresolved.
Major Garrett at the White House for us. Major, thank you. Repeating the breaking news of the moment, President Trump has fired FBI Director James Comey. This is a very unusual situation. The FBI Director is appointed to a 10-year term in order to insulate him from politics. Comey has only served about 3 of the 10 years. He was appointed by President Obama. The president does have the power to fire the FBI director, but only for cause. And we do not know what reason the president will cite in firing James Comey.